Hi, I'm Sandhya Vankamamidi. I'm a senior program manager at Microsoft. I work for the Information and Content Consumption Experiences team. That is a mouthful. So we decided to call it ICE, because we're cool. I'm here today to talk to you about the Bing Apps story, delighting customers and users with our apps across multiple form factors. So the story goes, we have 7 apps, and our experience started with delivering the Windows 8 Metro apps. The charter of our team was to deliver these awesome, rich, immersive experiences with the Windows 8 platform, with all of the design patterns that Windows 8 was able to give us, but to also showcase the really deep and wide amount of content that Microsoft and its partners had. So after we delivered the Windows apps, we moved on and delivered the phone apps. Now at this point in the story, you might be wondering, why do I care? Really good question. You should care, because in the journey of going from Windows to Windows Phone, we faced what we call the form factor challenge. Now, in general, shipping apps across different device sizes and platforms is complex. But what makes these apps really complex in today's world is the changing user expectation. There is a blending of boundaries that's happening. When does home stop and work start? Or for that matter, when does my personal time stop and my time with my friends start? What this creates is an expectation in the user's mind that these experiences are somehow connected and flowing. They're not disparate across different devices. In fact, case in point would be some of you here at Build in this session today are probably using your devices to do either a quick check on work email, Twitter, Facebook, even texting maybe. And that's what I mean in terms of actually being able to just flow the user experiences to wherever the user is going on whatever device that they choose to use at that point in time. So let's talk about the different aspects of designing across form factors. There are many, and I've kind of grouped all of them under 3 primary vectors: design patterns and screen sizes, user engagement styles, and input modality. Let's look at what we mean by design patterns and size of screen. I'm going to switch really quick here. And bring up the Bing News app. The Bing News app is actually a great canonical example for an app that is very generic in what it actually gives to the user, but can actually be very powerful in how the user chooses to use it. What do I mean by that? You could be checking for news for just a quick second between meetings, or you might actually want to do a really quick peek at what is the news for today as you're having your lunch at your desk. Now, the key point of design in the Bing News app for the Windows was to make sure that our users were getting the data, which is the news articles, the top stories, the sources, world, but also getting it at a depth where they can actually scan through and read quite a large amount of information directly from the UI. The other important aspect of the design here was to actually enable our users to go in and have what we call as continuous reading. You could actually go from one article to another article to another article and make sure that you actually had that really deep reading experience. Now, let's look at the same experience on the phone. Now, as I bring up the phone experience, what you will notice is the information architecture of the app on the phone has been optimized for the mobility of the device. So I can actually browse the content with a single hand, and I have the ability to go up and down through all of the different content categories that we just saw on the Windows device very quickly, just scanning through, right? Just 4 headlines per category. Now, this is a design choice. I could have shown 20, I could have shown 5, I could have shown 8. That is a decision that we need to make as we design this app to say how many is too many and how little is too little. And it just needs to resonate with the user. The other key thing that I wanted to point out was designs such as the pivot design that we've leveraged on the phone also provide the user the ability to actually leverage the quick browse, what we call as the info snacking experience on the phone. So here, a user can actually go in, very interested in politics, not interested so much in opinions, but interested in business. This ability to actually show a list of news articles for a specific category and allowing the user to jump across enables the user to get the value that they want very quickly and causing user delight. Now, the last thing that I did want to talk about is information density. When designing an app, we have many different pieces of information that actually need to be surfaced. And when looking at the beginning of designing the app, it is important to actually put all of those pieces on the table and evaluate or prioritize the set of things that actually need to bubble up. In this case, let's look at the phone. The only thing that we actually show the user is the title and the attribution. Which partner is this coming from? Pretty much, and the time, because the time is important. How recent is this? But the rest of the information, such as the abstract, right, is hidden away from the user because it's not something that is necessary on a device like the phone. On the other hand, on big windows, we would, if I switch back, what we do is make sure that the users get a good sneak peek of the abstract that the user is, that the article is about. And this enables the users to actually go in and read through just at the high level and get all the information they will need without even going into the article if they're short of time. So let's look at what some of the takeaways were. The key that I wanted to point out or land for this particular part, which is the design patterns, is there is a design pattern for Windows and a design pattern for phone. And it is great as app developers to come up with brand new concepts in terms of how we would want users to engage with our apps. But it's often really good to temper that down with trying to build on top of and leverage what has already been done in the platform. The only reason I would actually say that really strongly is because when we do actually deviate significantly from the platform, it causes a lot of user confusion. Despite the delight that it might cause within the team, the users are confused because the pattern of engagement across all of the other apps, the ecosystem of apps that is actually there on their device, is different from yours. So that is important. It is important to optimize the information architecture for that device. Like I said, if you need to make sure that you have pivots as jump-off points and your information architecture is hub and spoke, then that is something that you need to look at for Windows. Tie in your apps between the two device platforms, tie them in by bringing in color, fonting, and information architecture, but not by actually doing exactly what you did on the Windows device platform and bringing it down to the phone. Tune the data density for device. Like I said, if you have space, show the users more data. They would really thank you for it. The next segment that I wanted to talk about was user engagement styles. This is about understanding users' intent when they use our applications. Users always open an app with an intent. It could be to have fun, to kill time, to search for something, or even complete a task. And it's important that we, as developers of the app, put that at the top of our prioritization list to see what was the intent with which the user actually opened the app. Can I guess? Can I create the scenarios that actually make sure that they solve for that user intent? Why is this important? This is important because if I were to have an intent of opening an app to just quick browse, and you were to give me a lot of content and a lot of information, but in very detailed way, that would completely kill my need to come to your app, because I'm only looking for a very quick browse. Vis a vis, if I were actually launching the app with a task completion in mind, if I don't have the necessary jump-off points for completing my task, that would be a complete loss of the user's experience. So let's take a look. I call it to snack or not to snack. So jumping back, information snacking is indeed a valid term, because what ends up happening when you're information snacking is you're actually skimming. And it is important for us to actually take that into account when we are designing our apps. Now you could say, well, a user that's on Windows would want an information snack as well. You just told me that, Sandhya, just 10 minutes ago. What do you mean when you say information snacking, requires a different type of design? Well, what it does mean is that every device type might actually need information snacking to be built in. The question is, how high in the priority order is it? I'm not suggesting that we completely leave out information snacking for the Windows device. I'm just suggesting that it is something that you will need to prioritize higher or lower. So in the case of Windows, we have looked at providing more information and hence a deep browse kind of an experience, whereas on the phone, we actually show you more of an information snacking model. I want to bring up a very interesting app, which is our health and fitness app. The health and fitness app is actually what I call a task app, because it actually has so many interesting things that it can offer me. It can offer me fitness information. If I'm looking to actually add some yoga or exercises to my set of things that I do in the morning, I can actually look at that. I could look at nutrition, which is a completely different pivot. I could look at medical information. I could look at symptoms of things that is happening with me or my family. And this app can actually kind of put everything together. But that can be a problem. It can be a problem because when the user is coming into the app, it's important to understand what their intent is. And there's this 3 varied intents with which the user is coming in. So that brings us to an interesting design, which is a quick access bar. So when a user is coming into the health and fitness app, it could be that they are actually tracking their diet, tracking their exercise, or checking for symptoms or medical conditions. So we actually provide a jump-off point, which enables users to get where they want to go and do what they want to do without getting in their way of their experience. And this is very critical. And the last design paradigm that I wanted to talk about is search. Different apps are different. If we solve for the right user intent, we land the right design. Take the food and drink app. It is an information app. You can go in there, you can take a look at news around food, you can take a look at recipes or cocktails or wines. But when I actually come in with an intent, I'm looking for a specific recipe. I want the ability to search for that recipe to be top and center. I just want it right there. I don't want to have to wade my way through, I don't know, 15, 20 featured recipes in order for me to get to what I want to do. So it's important to actually provide an experience like this as the first jump off point for your users. They get what they want, they are happy with the app, and they will use us. With that, we come back and look at our key takeaways. It's very simple, is it? We identify all the different inputs or engagement patterns that users have, and you need to prioritize them in a way that it actually applies to your app. And every app is going to be different. And the key here that I do want to call out is you need to prioritize it for every device. It is not one for your app across all devices. It is for every single device. You would need to think through and see how the user is going to use that app and actually get the user experience that you're looking for. Let's move on to the input modality. This is a very interesting topic because there are so many things that are actually inherent inside of the input modality. The much talked about mouse and keyboard versus touch. Cameras, the ability to leverage voice. We've been hearing a lot about voice. The ability to have trackers or sensors actually giving us the input that we need. So let's go check out what it means for us to actually have touch. Now, as I bring this app up, I do want to call out, there is no simple solution for keyboard versus mouse, right? It is a fact or it is a reality that we have 1 billion plus users using keyboard and mouse. So the question is not, should I optimize for keyboard and mouse? It is that you should. If you want to be successful with 1 billion of those users using our apps on devices which actually support keyboard and mouse, we will need to make sure that our design is successful in that model. Now, I don't want to really go in and talk about keyboard and mouse, particularly on this one, because there is a different aspect that I wanted to bring out in this talk. I wanted to bring out the unusual experiences that you can have or you can actually create within your app to make them exciting for your users and delightful. So I wanted to talk about touch with a very different flavor. So I have here with me the Bing Travel app. And in the Bing Travel app, we have a very interesting functionality. I love this functionality because I live vicariously through this functionality in trying to visit places that I don't think I will ever go. So I'm going to bring up here this palace from Fez. Now, it's interesting how technology can make a difference to us. This is a beautiful image of the interior of a palace. But look what I can do with it. I can actually use the 360-degree view to experience the palace as though I were actually looking at it. I could look at the floor tiles. I could zoom in. That is beautiful. And I could look at the roof. That is some gorgeous wall covering up there. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that these experiences, which are optimized for different device form factors, are what make your apps really delightful. Now, moving on, I wanted to bring up this interesting aspect of modality, which is voice. Some of you would have attended Rob's session. Rob is right here from the Cortana team. And what I'm going to do today is actually be the developer of the platform that Rob is building. Because we consume everything that Windows does, and we actually try to leverage that within our apps. So I have here my Windows phone. And I'm going to launch Cortana. I'm going to tell Cortana to use voice to do something for me. Bing Health, add 2 pancakes for breakfast. I don't know if you actually heard her response, but she was clear. She said, adding 2 servings of pancakes for breakfast to the diet tracker. Now, what have I done? I've actually been able to use Rob's amazing platform and create a scenario that is truly valuable for my end user. And it's truly valuable because it reduces impedance. It reduces the resistance to using my app. If you've ever used a diet tracker, you can definitely relate with what I'm saying. It is really hard to go in there and enter every single food item that you eat day in after day out. And what this does is it actually enables me to add these really quickly whenever I have time, perhaps when I'm driving, right? It really increases my productivity. It might make me look a little silly while driving because I'll be talking to something, but it is something definitely that I would love to use. Now let's actually go in and take a look at how we did this. As Rob said in his session yesterday, there are 3 steps. I define a command, I register the command, and I handle the voice activation. Pretty simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to walk you through the code that we did to make this a reality. So here is my voice command definition file. And what I have here is the name of the command prefix that I've given for this voice definition. This is important because the app name is Bing Health and Fitness. Really long, really wordy. So I've actually shortened that, and I kind of like the Bing Health, so I picked Bing Health. And what I've also done is I've actually provided a sample for had 2 eggs for breakfast as something that Cortana can actually prompt the users for. So all of my users would actually know how to engage with my application. The next thing that I did was I actually defined the command, and I have defined here the grammar for the command with the user giving me all the inputs that I need. So I'm actually looking for 3 inputs. I'm looking for the serving size, 2 eggs, sorry, 2. And I'm looking for the food item, which is the eggs. And last but not the least, I'm looking for the time or the meal time, which is breakfast. So what I've done here is I've created 2 listen fors definitions in grammar, and I've defined some interesting asterisks in between. The reason I define this is because no matter how much you actually let your users know that the grammar is had 2 eggs for breakfast, they might actually say had 2 soft-boiled eggs for breakfast, or had 2 soft-boiled eggs for my breakfast, right? So you don't really want your grammar to be too exact. You actually want to make sure that you pick those pieces that are valuable to you and leave the rest out. So that's what those asterisks do for me. They actually allow the grammar to be successful more often than not. And here is the kicker. I actually have a very well-defined feedback. So Cortana can actually communicate back to the user what she has understood and what the app is going to do. So she can say, adding 2 servings of eggs for breakfast to diet tracker. Now that is very specific feedback, which causes a lot of user delight because you know exactly what's happening to the command that you gave. Now the second step that I talked about was that you would actually register this voice definition with the OS. Now, as you actually register this voice definition with OS, there are a couple of things to kind of keep in mind. The registration happens on the first app launch, which means a user that actually downloads your app will actually have to open the app for the first time so that the grammar can actually be registered, and subsequent to that, the grammar is available for the user to use. And step 3 was handling of this grammar or the callback that we're getting from Cortana in the app. Now this is the part which rocks, because we as developers really, really love this stuff, because we have code or logic that is very specific to our app, to our content, and we have to have the smarts to actually deal with what Cortana is giving us. So in this case, I have to have the ability to pick out all of the different values that Cortana is giving me, the 3 things that I asked for, right? I asked for the number of servings, the meal time, and the food item. And I can actually handle them accordingly from within my app. Now, if you noticed, I do have a few other examples that I have here, because as I said, users don't always speak the specific grammar that we teach them. They're going to be very flexible about it, and we need to have a grammar that can actually handle that. So what we've done is we've gone ahead and created some additional formats of the grammar. So we have one which is missing the serving. So it says, had eggs for breakfast. It's missing the 2. Or a grammar that actually tracks minus the meal time, which is essentially, I haven't really told you when it is that I had this, this food item. I just told you that I had 2 apples. Now, that's where the app handler kicks in, because the app handler can then figure out that right now the time is 4:30 p.m., and it's likely that it's a snack that you had. Now, that's not accurate, because you could be adding, like I said, I'm driving home at 5:30 in the evening, and I'm actually adding all of the stuff that I ate since morning. So that is definitely something that is a challenge. But this is something that works in general for the user, and is something that would work for most people that actually are very proactive about adding their food. And as I actually talk about this, let me go back and talk about something really important, which we as developers need to make sure we solve for. So like I said, a quick review. We define the command. We define the slot values. Now, it was interesting that the slot values, which are basically meal time, food item, and the serving size, these slot values were defined in my code as phrase list label. And this phrase list allows me to define a specific set of values. And I'll talk about it in just a minute, how we can actually get around these problems. But essentially, there are alternatives that we can use. We can use the ability to add phrase topics, and there are 2 types of phrase topics. There is the scenario search or the scenario dictation. Now, the second step that you would actually do is register the command, and the third step would be to handle the callback. So let's look at the pros and cons of why I would use one versus the other. So in the case of phrase list, there is very rich feedback. Why? There is very rich feedback because at the device level, I actually have all of my slot values. And what I'm able to do with that, or what Cortana is able to do with that, is take that, plug it into the feedback that you've given her, and speak back to the user in a detailed way, letting them know what exactly is going to happen. But the con of this is that it works for categories that are inherently bounded. So in the case of the diet tracker, the food item that we were talking about can be very tricky, because food item is not a bounded set. It can be many things to many people. It is different from regions to countries to whatever you can think of. I mean, I could make something new at my house, which you guys never ever have heard about, and I have a name for it, and that's what we eat. So I would want to track that. So it becomes really interesting that the unbounded set, when we start defining that using the phrase list, it could get pretty challenging. I do have to call out that although it could get challenging, there is a way in which you can actually programmatically improve the grammar for Cortana. Because as the user adds a custom food item, right, I make something very specific at my house, I add that once through the diet tracker, you could actually programmatically handle and push that food item back into Cortana into the phrase list. The second way of handling this would be to do a phrase topic. Now, a phrase topic scenario search, there are two types, and I'm going to call out what the differences are. The phrase topic scenario search is essentially a search capability that we're providing from within the voice command. You would actually use the phrase topic scenario search for all entities that you would actually very easily find on, say, Bing. If it's something that you would search for, then this is a great place to actually have that added. The con of this is that it might not match the user's favorite. Like I said, pancakes, searchable. My special version of dosa, not searchable, right? So it gets really, really hard for the parser to actually make sense of something that's custom. The third type is actually the phrase topic scenario dictation. This is what Rob demoed in his session yesterday. And this is pretty cool, because what we're doing here is we're actually letting the cloud do all of the hard work of parsing the text and giving us the text back as a complete dictated set. And what happens with that is two things. One, we have the ability to control the parsing very granularly, which means the level of accuracy of this one is going to be super high, right? Because you know exactly what you're looking for. You can even make all those, little pathways to handle all of the things that the user could say. And so this is actually a very high accuracy path to take. There is a con, though. The feedback is obviously very limited. The feedback is limited because Cortana really doesn't hear or doesn't get any information about the key pieces that might be needed for her to give feedback. So all she can say is she can say, starting Bing Health. She won't be able to say, starting Bing Health and adding 2 servings of bananas. So that is indeed a con. Not a huge con, but it is a con. It depends on your scenario. Now, the other interesting thing here is that for the last one to work, which is the phrase topic, last two, phrase topic search and phrase topic dictation to work, you do need internet connectivity. So again, that's something to keep in mind. As you're designing your app and developing your app, who are your users? If your users are going to be in basements because they are pharmaceutical employees that actually walk the really long hallways under all the hospitals, right? And they actually want to be using something like this, then you want to make sure that you're going with phrase lists, because internet connectivity is going to be hard. So you want to be able to parse all of that on the phone. And the last one that we actually move to is the input modality sensors. This is an interesting one because there is so much innovation that's happening. There is a tremendous amount of innovation that has happened in the past around GPS trackers and being able to give you accurate information about where you're going and what you're doing in terms of running speed, stride length, and so on. But the innovation that I did want to talk about is around the fact that about a month ago, I went to a doctor for my annuals. And my doctor looked at everything, and the numbers were reasonable, but she really was like you need to get a little bit more exercise. Now, if you actually know me, you will know that I do not like exercise, the traditional, let's go work out and I'm going to lift weights or I'm going to do treadmill. I'm just not that kind of person. I don't mind going for a walk once in a while, but I really don't like to exercise. So I was pretty bummed that most of the trackers that we have today are things that we would actually have to enable and get feedback on. So when I actually found out, let me get the screen up. So when I found out that my phone can be my tracker, I thought that was pretty cool. Now, you kind of begin to wonder, what does that mean? Because to some extent, what I want is I want this one device. I don't want 15 things hanging off of my hands or legs that are actually doing things for me. I just want this one device. That's the kind of person I am. So for me, this was really huge, the ability to track steps by just walking and having my phone in my hand. So I have here a terrible number for today. No wonder my doctor was concerned. But I have the data to show you that I have been walking reasonably. And what is cool about this is that these are low-powered sensors that Nokia has added to their Sensor Core SDK, which we are leveraging from within the Health and Fitness app. Now, this opens up a large possibility for us in terms of what we can do with the Sensor Core SDK. But this is just one implementation that we really wanted to showcase. Because at some level, what this enables our users to do is to not have our app running in the foreground in order for us to track their activity. They can just go for a walk, they can go to the grocery store, and we would be tracking all of their activity using our app. So coming back here, the input modality sensors, the Nokia Sensor Core SDK is all about a low-powered sensor in the device that enables the device to keep track of the activities. The interesting thing is that they actually give the information to us as an activity count. So we as an app are going in and getting that information from the device and directly using it. So how did we do that? It's a two-step process. Step one, we need to modify the app manifest. And here we are specifically looking for two capabilities that we add. One is called the location. We had to have that, of course. And two is the device capability called human interface device. And then and then we also add a few extensions that is called out in the Nokia SDK. Now, the step two is about all the calls to Sensor Core SDK. And this is around being able to go in and get the data, which has already been accounted for, right, as steps or as runs. So we're going in, getting that data, and showing it to our users every time the app launches. Now, it's interesting to note that the steps actually gets refreshed every 10 seconds, somewhat. So it's not a device where you're actually holding it in your hand, walking, and you're expecting all of the steps to change every second, but it does update within 7 to 10 seconds. So all in all, what I wanted to leave you with for input modalities is sky is the limit. There is so much we can do to innovate with all of the device capabilities that are actually coming out. And that enables us to actually ship and create these experiences for the different form factors in a way that actually is appealing for our users. So the steps integration that we've done is on the phone. We don't have that on our Windows. And the same would be said for GPS tracker. Now, there could be these one-off cases where users actually are like, oh, I'm going to carry my Surface device all over the place wherever I go. But that's not the one that we prioritized for. We only prioritized for the mobile devices for all of the tracking scenarios. So in terms of input modalities, again, prioritization is key. So in conclusion, it is really easy to build innovative, fun, and smart apps by following just a few different key pieces of advice. Reduce user cognition by following and leveraging all of the design patterns that the platform is giving us. Tune for data density across the devices. Lower the density if the device is smaller. It needs to be accurate. It needs to be concise. It needs to be precise. The smaller the device, the more precise the information. Prioritize, prioritize, prioritize. Take all of the user engagement models that we talked about, prioritize through them so that your app has the right prioritized set. If user is looking to go in and get some work done and get out, enable that for them. Don't give them huge experiences that are going to take them a long time to get through. Vis-a-vis, if the user is looking to go in there and add just a banana into their diet tracker, enable that for them. Bringing in the new modalities and solving for the scenarios. Again, user delight comes because of the simplicity of the design. In the case of the pedometer demo that I just showed you, being able to have just a single device that is able to track my steps is huge. It's huge because in the emerging markets, not everybody is going to have a Fitbit. In the emerging markets, getting these low-cost devices is going to be the way that we will go. And we, as a Windows platform, want to make sure that these experiences, high-value experiences, such as being able to track your health, being able to track your activity, are available to users all across the world. But for you, what that means is, in your apps, make sure that you can leverage some of these innovations that are happening on the platform and the OEM side to make your apps delightful. With that, I would like to make sure that I invite Rob and Sami from Nokia on the stage. In case you have questions, please do feel free to ask. I missed something very important. Please do give me your feedback. Your feedback is very valuable. Thank you. I did want to mention that there is a Nokia session in Sami. The room number is 2001. 2001. So there is a session by the Nokia team talking a little bit more in depth about the Nokia Sensor Core SDK. So please do feel free to attend. And I also did want to talk about this really quick announcement. The grand prize drawing for the Windows Code Challenge has been moved from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. If you participated in the Windows Code Challenge and have a blue raffle ticket, please come to the second floor in front of the DJ booth at 6:30.
And on that point, if you haven't tried out Cortana or integrating your application or with Cortana, there's a code challenge that does that. We walk you through the exact steps to take a simple camera application and make it so you can tell the camera to take a picture with a particular phrase for the tag, and then use that same application to find pictures with tags.
If anybody has questions, we will be right down. Thank you.
Thanks.